right, so for today, organizations are always under attack. So cybercrime is really lucrative, and the organization tends to pay more attention to security at the server end, thereby leaving the endpoints vulnerable. Most organizations do this because they believe that the endpoints are less privileged to attack, but we have to look beyond that. The endpoints are more than being attacked by hackers, because with 1,000 endpoints, you have the ability to be attacked in different ways. Hackers work around the clock to infiltrate organizations. So we have to take that into consideration when we are trying to protect our end users. So with this, we have to be able to synchronize our security between our server and our endpoint perfectly. So integrating this, endpoint is critically important for us because every lead in the organization starts with the endpoint, starting from the sales team, the MD. That means that the endpoint is critically important for every line of business activity. Because we don't want our endpoint to go down. Once our endpoint goes down, we cannot deliver our organization goals. That means that there's a reduction in the time that we are able to deliver our organization goals. So we have to be able to protect our endpoint with very, very good accuracy. So malware will eventually get into your environment. This is sure. But when malware gets into your environment, how did you plan or intend to take care of the malware that gets into your environment? Once malware gets into your environment or infiltrates your environment, your data, there's automatically a data breach in your organization. This data breach will cause loss to you and your organizations, because the amount of money you use to salvage data when the malware is already in your organization is far less than the amount you use to protect it. So for here now, we have malware getting into your environment. So business will have information such as credit card and confidential information. Once hackers get access to all this information, eventually you are going to lose the amount of trust you have with your customers. Your customers won't have that real trust with you because they know that their data is outside there, and there could be any form of identity theft. So we have again the initial cost. Once we talk about initial cost, the initial cost of protecting your environment to deploy solutions that will protect your environment is far less than the cost that you will use to salvage your data when malware gets inside. So basically, you are paying more when malware gets into your environment. So that is why you have to be able to secure your environment very well. So the integrity of the organization is also in doubt, because
Hello. I'm assuming Ahmed has network issues.
Sorry for that. That was messed up. So to defend against this advanced threat, you have to be there before the attack. That means that you have to gather all the intelligence that you need. So you have to be there in front of the attack. So before the attack goes inside the organization or penetrates inside the organization, you have to have the threat intelligence to be there before the attack. Also, during the attack, you have to have a visible overview of everything in your organization. So you have to keep security tight during the point of attack, before attack, and after attack. So after attack, you have to have an overview of everything in your organization, everything that the malware has done in your organization. You have to have a brief of everything in your organization. That is why to defend against most advanced malware of this time, you have to be there before, you have to be there during the attack, and you also have to be there after the attack. So what is Cisco AMP? Cisco AMP for Endpoint offers cloud-delivered endpoint protection and advanced endpoint detection and response. Cisco AMP also stops breaches and attacks rapidly. So with Cisco AMP, you get continuous monitoring and analyzing of all your files and process activity within your network to find and automatically eliminate the USPS 1% of threats that slips past your gateway. AMP never loses sight of anywhere that the file goes, even though the file has already passed the point of coming inside the organization. AMP doesn't lose visibility of the file in your organization. If a file that has already passed clean upon initial inspection ever become Cisco AMP, you get all this in one. Cisco AMP prevents, detects, and also responds. So it prevents malware in real time. That means that before the malware can even get into your organization, Cisco AMP is there to protect you. It's also there to detect the malware at the point where it starts a compromise. That means it's at the point that the malware starts executing in your organization. Cisco AMP is also there. And it's also there to respond to any form of malware at any point in time in your organization. So you have Cisco AMP for you. Cisco AMP for you delivers all this capability in one solution. So AMP for endpoint is the center of security. AMP for endpoint is basically the center of security for Cisco solutions. Is the endpoint that delivers all the data job for the other Cisco solutions, gathering data from the endpoint and passing it to other solutions in the cloud for effective monitoring and analyzing of all the files. So AMP is basically in the middle of all Cisco solutions to give you the power to be able to stop malware. With AMP in the middle, you have the power to leverage on every Cisco product. That includes Cisco Security, the Talos Intelligence, the Umbrella, and different other Cisco solutions. With AMP, you get all this integration in one bundle. With Cisco, with Umbrella, which leverages DNS, you get all this. So AMP basically stands at the middle of Cisco security. So Cisco AMP defends with retrospective security. That means that there is continuous analysis of the file in your organization. Once the file is already in your organization or it has breached the initial security gateway of your organization, there is continuous analysis of the file inside your organization. It also has the ability to change, to spread or cover the attack inside your organization. Sorry, what I mean by this is it does attack chain weaving. So in which it shows the parts of the file in your organization from the time that it enters into your organization to how it is executing inside your organization and the specific point in time where it is executing and the sub-process that it is taking and executing underneath. Cisco AMP has the ability to weave the attack in real time so that you can see it. Cisco AMP also gives you tight trajectory ability, whereby you can track the malware as it goes from one of your devices to another. So you can basically track what it has done in your network, the compromise that it has done in your network, how it has moved from one endpoint to the other, or from maybe one endpoint to the server and start executing malicious code. So you can also get file trajectory in which you have the ability and the visibility to see where the file is executing directly in your network. So you have the ability to see that with Cisco AMP too, because it delivers retrospective security to your organizations. So the AMP engine, for Cisco AMP engine contains two major components. One, it has the endpoint protection platform. Then it also has the endpoint detection and response. With the endpoint protection platform, you get the antivirus engine. That is the major antivirus engine that comes with the bundle. That is the default antivirus that scans for malware, advanced malware. This antivirus is being updated daily by the Cisco Security Solutions engineer. So they update this signature every day. That means there's at least like 3 updates to this engine every day. Then you have the endpoint detection and response. With the endpoint detection and response, basically you get threat analysis, you get file analysis, you get threat intelligence, and all this, you get it with the endpoint detection and response. So AMP for endpoints, it leverages multiple protection engine. that is swirled by Cisco Talos. The threat intelligence blocks even the slightest or 1% of threats before compromise. So together with Cisco X, you gain better visibility and automation across an expanded set of security telemetry beyond your endpoint so that you can respond to threats completely with security that works together. So with all this, you get all this with the AMP engine that comes with Cisco AMP. So for organizations that wants to add in an active managed threat hunting practice to their environment, AMP for endpoints now offers secure X threat hunting. So powered by Cisco and an allied threat hunting team, your organization will receive high fidelity alerts with recommendations delivered directly into your management console straight up. So the benefits of choosing Cisco AMP: one, you have the next generation antivirus engine. That's for advanced malware, you need to get an advanced antivirus engine. So with Cisco AMP, you get the advanced antivirus engine. So you also get the fileless and ransomware protection. So with the fileless and ransomware protection, this protects you from exploits. That is the exploit that compromise software or software vulnerabilities. This is common in attack of nowadays because hackers are getting more and more intelligent or wise. So with Cisco AMP, you get the ability to protect against this exploit-based attack. So it also has the ability to learn. So with this, the AMP engine learns automatically from previous attack so that it can defend against the new attack that's going to come up. So it also has continuous threat hunting. You get continuous threat hunting with it because with Cisco AMP in your environment, there's continuous and dynamic analysis of file. Dynamic analysis in which those files are passed to Cisco Cloud for sandboxing activity. Because if a file comes into your environment and the antivirus engine scans it, once it scans it and is not able to identify it, the antivirus engine takes the file and sends it to the cloud where it is analyzed in a sandbox environment. This sandbox environment is completely isolated and the behavior of the malware is detected in the sandbox environment. This can give you an ability to see whether the malware is going to execute a malicious code in your environment. So with this, you get an information back or an alert or a message back from Cisco Cloud that this particular file is a malware or is not a malware. So it also reduces attack, it reduces attack time in your environment such that your IT admins doesn't have to start looking from endpoint to endpoint, from one solution to another solution to detect the attack in your environment. Basically, you get all this with Cisco AMP because you can leverage on just one solution to do multiple things for you. With Cisco AMP, you also get endpoint isolation. Immediately there's any form of activity in your environment on a specific endpoint, the Cisco AMP solution, it automatically isolates the endpoint so that you can work on it as the IT admin. So with retrospective security, basically goes back in time to check how the malware infiltrated your environment from running within your environment to the point of compromise. And when you start running malicious codes in your environment, you get all this with choosing Cisco AMP. So the AMP really consists of the management console and the connector. The management console is the interface where the IT admin connects to dish out policy to the connector or to the endpoint. This is where you get your real-time alerting, your dashboard, your inbox, where you set policies, you set apps that you want to block, you set apps that you want to allow, you set everything that you need to set. This is basically the place where you push all your policy, get your alert, your threat intelligence, your threat analysis. This is where you get it from the Cisco AMP management console. And the connector is basically the endpoint, the lightweight package that you can install on all Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, and iOS devices. This connector acts as the policy enforcer. It enforces policy on the endpoint so that the policy that are pushed by the cloud IT admin will be enforced basically on the endpoint. So with this, you can just install this on any of the endpoints. So once you install this, it automatically connects to the AMP management console and receives updates and policy from the AMP management console. So this is the connector diagnostic flow. As you can see here, from the admin pushes policy via the AMP for our endpoint console. Once the admin pushes the policy goes to the endpoints. Those are Windows. We have connectors for Windows, Mac, Linux, and Android devices. So once the admin pushes the policy from the management console, it goes straight to all the endpoints and enforces it on all the endpoints. It takes a bit of time. Sometimes it depends on the amount of time that you set on the management console. That means it takes 15 minutes, there's 15 minutes, there's 30 minutes for you to be able to synchronize policy from the management console. So with this diagram again, you can also see how the connector diagnostic flow. The connector diagnostic is just a way of gathering data from endpoints. Once you are able to gather data from endpoints, that is when you're about to start your initial installation. Because Cisco recommends that you start an initial installation with audit mode. Once you're in the audit mode, you can easily gather data from your endpoint. This will help you and reduces the time that your end users will come and start complaining that this app is blocked, this app is blocked, this app is blocked. Basically, you can get all the data while in audit mode. So once you get all the data, you know what you want to block when you're about to set your protect or other policy that you want to enforce. Another component of the Cisco AMP is the AMP update server. Let's imagine a scenario where we have about 1,000 endpoints. This is going to really work or take a toll on your bandwidth because you have about thousands of endpoints going to the Cisco cloud to take updates from the Cisco cloud. Basically, with the AMP update server, the AMP update server can sit in your LAN. Once the AMP update server sits in your LAN, all the other endpoints can just get access to download the update directly from the AMP server. All the other endpoint doesn't need to go out the LAN to start downloading the files, because when they start going out through the LAN to start downloading the files, then you have constraints on your bandwidth, and your bandwidth is going to be true sooner or later. So that is why we have the AMP update server. The AMP update server gives you this capability of minimizing the amount of bandwidth that the endpoint takes to synchronize update from the AMP cloud. Although there are some Cisco engineers who said about the AMP endpoint not consuming enough data during updates, because basically or typically an average amount of updates for the AMP is about 4 or 5 KB. So with 4 or 5 KB, imagine about like 1,000 or 2,000 endpoints going to the cloud to download updates. Although this might not take a toll on your bandwidth, but imagine where a point where your WAN goes down for days. If your WAN goes down for days and the endpoint is not able to download at least 13 updates that has been pushed down by the Cisco cloud, the endpoint will eventually have to download all the whole package. That means it will have to download a file of about 250 MB each. So imagine 1,000 endpoints downloading a file of about 250 each. That is going to take a massive toll on your environment. So it is better to put in place an update server when you have thousands of endpoints. So we are going to talk about the integration with other Cisco solutions. So number one, threat grid. With threat grid, you get file analysis and threat intelligence to the AMP solution. This file analysis comes from Cisco Cloud and is a sandboxing environment. All the malware that has been detected on premise is fed straight to the cloud. Once this malware is fed straight to the cloud, it is analyzed in a sandbox environment. This sandbox environment installs the file, runs the file, and watch the file for any behavioral compromise. So with Cisco Threat Grid, you get all this in one solution. So Cisco Threat Grid basically combines advanced sandboxing with threat intelligence into one unified solution to protect your organization from malware. So with this robust content-rich malware knowledge base, you can get at least 99% threat reduce in your environment. So Cisco AMP leverages on this capability of threat grid. So once you have Cisco AMP, you basically have threat grid added to it. So it also integrates with Cisco Umbrella. So the Umbrella is a cloud security platform that defends against threats of the internet, whether your users are on or off the corporate network. Umbrella gives you the complete visibility into internet activity across all your locations. This is what Umbrella gives you. Umbrella monitors and analyzes attackers' infrastructure to identify and proactively block malicious requests before a connection is even made to the server. So Umbrella helps organizations to stop attack earlier and identify already infected devices faster and prevent data exfiltration. Umbrella basically leverage on the power of DNS. DNS, because we cannot undermine the capability of DNS, because every endpoint actually does DNS resolution before accessing the internet. So Umbrella leverage on this DNS layer security to protect your device. So it blocks you from visiting known malicious domains. It blocks you from phishing and fraud domains where you can easily get attacked by the hackers. So Umbrella stops your endpoint even before connection to all these known and malicious servers. So with Cisco AMP, you also get this integration so that it can foster security or unify security and deliver it to your endpoint. There are other AMP integrations that include Cisco Meraki. You can basically integrate your AMP with Cisco Meraki, Cisco Talos. So Cisco Talos is just a threat intelligence organizations. So they are one of the largest threat intelligence in the world that are comprised of world-class researchers, analysts, and engineers. So they are industry-leading researchers that gives you threat intelligence across the internet. So they provide this for you. If you own a Cisco AMP for endpoints, you basically harness the power of Cisco Talos threat intelligence that flows into each and every one of Cisco products. So Cisco cognitive threat analysis also helps you quickly detect and respond to sophisticated attacks that are already on that way or are attempting to establish a presence in your organization. The solution automatically identify and investigate suspicious or malicious web-based traffic. So they also have the ability to integrate with other APIs or third-party tools such as SIEM, Splunk, or with Cisco AMP, you basically get 30 days of data access in which Cisco is able to store your data. But if you want them to be able to, or you want to get your data for more than 30 days, maybe you want to get your data stored for like 1 year, you can use all these different third-party integration to save your data. So I'll take you through the demo. So I have my server here in Azure. So this is my server here in Azure, and I'm going to log in into the management console now. So let me log in into the management console. So there you have it, this management console for AMP. So the first thing that you are seeing here is the dashboard. With the dashboard here, you get the compromise the quarantine detection, the vulnerability, the compromise. That means I have one of three pieces in my organization that have already installed the connector on, and they've already established connection to the management console. So I have three here, and I have one of my PCs here that is compromised. So here I have the quarantine detection. That means that no file has been quarantined already. So I have the vulnerability here. This is the vulnerability section that shows which software is vulnerable in your endpoints on your network. So I also have the inbox here. With the inbox here, you get.
Hello, Hamid. Hamid. We
Yes,
can't see your
yeah.
screen. We can't see your
Okay, you
screen.
can see.
Yes, we're seeing your PowerPoint. Right.
Oh, I've shared it.
Yes, it was showing initially, but it's still on PowerPoint. That's the screen you can see at the moment.
Okay, sorry, can you see it now?
Yes, it's up now. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. Okay, let me start with the dashboard again. So this is dashboard here. With the dashboard, you can see the amount of PC. I have 3 endpoints in my organization, and one is already compromised. That means that there's malware on one of the endpoints here. I have the quarantine detection here. This is the quarantine. This shows all the malware that has been passed into quarantine. And currently, I don't have any malware that I've already quarantined, because the policy I set an audit policy. In the audit policy, I explained earlier that when you are setting the audit policy wouldn't block any malware. It's just going to gather information about the malware on your endpoints. That means that the policy is just going to sit on your connector there, and we just gather data and see how the policy is going to react when you eventually set a protect policy. So yeah, I have the vulnerability section here. For the vulnerability section here, although I have no vulnerability in my environment now, the vulnerability shows which software can currently be exploited in my organization. So I don't have any software that can currently be exploited in my organization here. So I go to the inbox here. For the inbox here, you get alerts on the threats that has already compromised your environment. So here I have 33% compromise, as I have in my dashboard earlier. So these are compromised artifacts. These are uninstalled.exe. These are files. These are malware that has been notified to me directly on the management console. So I have this installed in my endpoints. That is the driver pack notify exe. This is .exe file. So I have all these malware currently on one of the endpoints, because it's showing me that it's 1/3 here via air. So I have one endpoint compromised with all this malicious code. So for the events are already things that has gone on or currently going on in my network here. So for here, I have some of the devices here that are blocked. I have some of the devices here that are detected. For this PC here, it detected this driver toolkit.exe as this file here. So once I click the drop down here, I can get the information of everything that I need here. So this is the fingerprint of the file here. This is the file name. This is the file path. This is the path on the endpoint, on this specific endpoint here. So this is the file path here, and this is the file size. So I can get all this information here. So when I go to the event, I can basically check updates, blocked application, name it, whatever, you can check it here. Because this is the major place where you can check all events in your organization. So for analysis, in this analysis here, this tool here is used to check your organization anytime you have a malware infection or you're analyzing a threat. So for the file analysis here, here you can basically upload. Okay, it's up now. So here you can basically submit a file to Cisco Cloud. Here, once you submit this file to Cisco Cloud can analyze this file. Once they analyze this file, they send it back to you. malware or not, they send it back to you. They send you the IP where you downloaded the file. They send you basically all the information that you need. They send you the file ratings across different organizations on the internet, that security organization, how they rated the file on the internet. Maybe it's a specific file. All the various ratings of each security organization is going to be submitted to you so that you can access the file and get a better view of the file than you have on your endpoint. So the file repository here, I haven't set up my two-factor authentication. So with the file repository here, you can download data from or logs that the connector on the endpoint has already collected. You can download the logs from the endpoint and pull it up to the cloud there so that you can analyze the logs there. Once an end user says he's having an issue or something, so from here you can tell the connector to export logs from the endpoint to the management cloud there so that you can know which app is being blocked. So when you get the log, it's going to give you which app is being blocked, what is being blocked for, the file paths, and every other necessary information that you need. So the first thing here in the outbreak control, these are custom detections. Custom detections is just a way for you to upload your antivirus engine, or if you have an antivirus signature that you want to upload here, you can upload it in the custom detection here. So once you upload it here, you have the capability to be able to block it across your network. This custom detection flags the virus for you immediately. The connector scans the endpoint. Once you update any file here or upload any file to your custom detection, anytime the antivirus engine make a scan, it sees this as a virus. So this is where you set any file that you want the antivirus to scan and detect as a virus. So you set that here. So there's also here, you also have the ability to create an advanced custom detection. Advanced custom detection is a way of you creating an antivirus engine straight from scratch. You have to do this, and this is very tedious. It contains hundreds of lines of code, so you have to start putting in those codes and creating an antivirus engine. So once you create an antivirus engine, you can add it to your tool on the Cisco connector for endpoints there. So your blocked application, you can also add applications that you want to basically block here. So for this now, I have block WinRAR. That means I have two files in block WinRAR. I actually created an application control and I selected two of my files to block here. With this, you can basically use this to block files. Maybe there are specific versions of VLC that you don't want them to run in your organization because there's current exploit for those applications currently and you don't want your end users to run them. You can just come here and upload them here. Once you upload them here, it's going to block them across all your network. So you can either upload them with their fingerprint, that is their hash, or you upload the file here. So for this here, I have two files here. This is number one file here. That is Chrome setup.exe. I blocked this because I was doing a test with this guy here. So, and also WinRAR file here. So I blocked this too. You also have the ability to allow applications. Here again, you can block and allow IP lists. This is not a firewall though. You cannot block on ports, you cannot block on protocol or anything. This just gives the ability to be able to block known malicious domains. That means that you have already bad domains that you have their IP with you, that you don't want users to go to, or you have command and control center IP. Those are command and control center IPs, those malicious domains where virus or malware on endpoints interact with on the cloud or on the internet somewhere. So if you have any IP of those domains here, you can basically add it here Once you add it here, it's going to block them automatically. So here you can also initiate scan here. So initiate scan here, you can select a policy that you want to initiate scan on, whether it's protect or anything. You can select the policy that you want to scan. So here you can select the username, that is the username of the endpoint, and the password, that is the login on the Windows that you want to scan. You put the login here, then you select if it's a full scan or a flash scan, then you schedule your scan. So this will give you the results that you want. So here I have my groups here. These are one of my groups, and this is my computer here. So I added this computer. Once you install the connector on the endpoint, automatically it's going to add the endpoint for you on the management console here. So I have 3 endpoints that is already installed. I installed on-prem here. That means I installed HLTSS. I installed it on my on-prem endpoint. That means that my computer here is also classified into this endpoint. I installed this here. I also installed the connector here too. So I have 3 devices that I currently installed my connector on. So this is the group here. After installing the connector there, I can create a group and select which endpoint is in which group. So with this power here, I can basically put similar endpoints together. If I have servers or endpoints on Azure, I can classify them together. If I have servers on endpoints on my premise or on-prem, I can classify them together. So here I have Azure server here and I have on-prem endpoints here. So I actually created 2 child groups here. With the 2 child groups here, you can separate updates on your file. The basic importance of child group. Let's say you have a branch here in Lagos and you have another branch somewhere across the world where the time zone isn't different or is different, and you want to push updates to those files. Once you push updates, some of those pieces might go off. So you don't want to push updates when Lagos branch is on and Australia branch is off. So that means that you are pushing updates and it's going to affect the Lagos branch when they are working. So you can actually select to create a child group out of this. Once you create child group out of this, it's going to separate them into 2, and you can update them as you want. You don't want to update people when they are working. You don't want their endpoint to go off when they are working or during business hours. So you should be able to separate them and granularly manage all your endpoints accordingly. So this is your policy here. You get your policy all here. You set up your policy here. This is the policy where you are going to add applications, block applications, add custom detections, everything that you set up in your outbreak control. That is, add this, you add your allowed list. This is where you set your custom exclusion list. This custom exclusion list, those are the file paths or threads or exe that you don't even want the AMP for endpoint to scan at all. You can basically select all this. You can see this exclusion list consists of files in this directory, this McAfee directory, Microsoft Forefront. You can see all this. With this, you can set up a policy based on all this and isolate your exclusions, block applications that you want to block, move them into a group, and enforce your policy. So this is where you download your connector here. After setting up your policy, setting up your group, then you download the connector. You select which group it is for and you download the connector. Once you download the connector, you can then export the connector to an on-prem device or to an endpoint, or maybe you bring your own device, maybe your Android device or your Mac device or your iPhone. After downloading the connector here, then you send it to the phone and install it. So after installing, the connector makes a connection straight to the management console here and inherits all the policies that you've already set. So for users, you can actually create users from here. Here I have my IT, my administrator here. This is my administrator and this is my test user. You can create various users here for all your members of your IT so that they can log into the console here. You can grant them administrator privilege. And if you don't want them to grant administrator privilege, you can do that also here. So it basically means you being selective in your approach of giving out administrator privilege, because you basically don't want anyone to just come and mess up with your policy here. So you can set up all this here. So you have your audit log here. This is your audit log here, where you get all the audit data, who has logged in, the updates that you made, anyone that has made any change to anything on the console, you can get it in the audit log here. So we are going to create a new policy. I want to create a new policy and install the connector on this Azure server. Once I install the connector on this Azure server here, you want to be able to manage this Azure server too. So we can come to our policy here. You can either choose to clone the policy or create a new policy. You can actually duplicate your policy here or create a new policy, but it is always advisable for you to always duplicate your policy, because there are always settings or recommended settings that are there. But if you know that you have everything done from the scratch, all your homework done from the scratch, you have all your file exclusions that you know that you've gathered on your endpoints that you want to exclude, you have your proxy set out, you have all your custom detections, you have everything set, then you can create a new policy. But for the essence of this demo, we are going to duplicate a policy so that we are going to make efficient use of our time. So I duplicate this policy here. Then I can edit the policy here. So let's say this is our webinar test here. With the policy that I duplicated the audit policy. So the audit policy doesn't put file into quarantine. Once it detects a malware or any form of exploit, it doesn't put it into quarantine. Like I said earlier, the audit policy is used to gather data before your major deployment. So you don't deploy something that you haven't really tested. Once you set the protect policy, immediately you install it on any endpoint, it basically starts to work. Everything that you don't even want to block or quarantine, it starts doing different activities. And trust me, you're going to have a bad day, because all your users are going to start calling you that this is blocked, this is blocked, this is blocked, and you're going to start going through them one after the other. So it's always good for you to start with your audit policy. Once you start with your audit policy, you set your files here in audit. Your network, it doesn't block access to anything in your network here. It doesn't block access from that specific endpoint to any other endpoint that is trying to interact with in the organization. So your malicious activity has disabled it. So here we have system protection is in protect, and the script protection, this is taking precedence because it's quarantining any scripts, any malicious script here. So here you can choose to turn on Tetra and exploit prevention. Tetra is the antivirus engine. Basically, you want this because you want your connector to be able to scan file on-prem. So you have your exploit prevention here. This exploit prevention is just basically going to protect you from software vulnerabilities. So you want that here too. So you come to your exclusion list here. So these are the defaults that are set by Cisco here. So with these defaults here, the AMP engine wouldn't scan all these points here, all these file parts here, all these drive and everything. So if you have your own in your on-prem that you're using, maybe you installed a line of business application that is important to you, you can just come here and set the exclusion list here. You can add all the 5 parts, the application, basically on what condition you want to exclude the file. You can come and add it here. So once you add it here, if you have any proxy in your environment, that means that your internet data is going through your proxy before going out to the internet. You can add it. This is the major reason why most endpoints don't connect to the management console. Once you have your proxy set here, the endpoint is going to connect to the management console. So your outbreak here, this here is your simple detection list here. We don't have any that we want to set. We don't have any that we want to set here. Let's set blocked application list because we created the block application list earlier that I showed you, the WinRAR and the VLC. So we are going to select this now. We are going to block this here. Then your network and IP. We don't have any IP allow or block list. So on the product update here, you can select the update that you want here, the time that you want. Do you want it to reboot after updating? What is the reboot delay? All this, you can set all this. We don't need all this, so we're going to skip through this too. So for the administrative feature here is the heartbeat interval. The heartbeat interval, they won't change it. I don't believe we should change it because this is the time it takes to inherit policy from the management console. So every 15 minutes, the endpoint comes to the console to take policy here. This is the log level. Here we can enable the connector protection. This connector protection will not allow your end users to uninstall the app without your permission. So you can set the password here. Your client user interface here. Once you install the connector, do you want your clients to see any interface? You can choose your client to see any interface. You can let's hide the exclusion because the exclusion list is always very, very long. So this is the endpoint isolation also. We don't want to isolate the endpoints. If we isolate the endpoints here, then we are going to basically select the allow list. Where do you want it to access when the endpoint is isolated? Because if the endpoint is isolated, it will not allow the endpoint access to any other resource except the management console of Cisco AMP. So here you can select if you want to allow any IP or allow it to access any IP when it is in endpoint isolation mode. Check. So the Tetra engine here, this is where you set the update server. I said earlier, the update server here is the local update server. This is the AMP update server here. So if you don't want it to synchronize directly from AMP cloud, you can set your AMP update server here. That is provided you've already installed your AMP update server somewhere in your environment. So you can put in the IP here. So if you don't have any AMP update server here, then we can save here. I can just uncheck this, sorry. So the policy has been updated successfully. So from here, the next thing we are going to do, we are going to create the groups here. So here we can create a new group. Yeah, we can name the group group. Then because we edited the Windows policy, just the Windows policy that we edited, we can come here and select the policy that we edited here. So here also, we didn't do this because for the sake of time, I don't want us going through and creating a policy for Android, Mac, Linux, and iOS. We can leave all these policy as default here. So we only created this policy here. So we can leave this policy here. And if there's any child group that you want to add to this group, you can basically select it here and put it there. But we are not adding any child group to this, so we can just save the group here. we've created a group now. Then we can come to the download connector here. We select the group here. So here now, after selecting the group that you want here, you can download the connector. If you want the connector for a Windows device, you can download this. If you want the connector for Linux device, you can download this. If you want the connector for Mac and Android, you can also download any one that you want to download. But we are going to download, because I have a Windows server in Azure here. So we are going to download this here. Let's check our download list. So it's downloaded already. Select the path that we want to install it to. Leave it as default. Then we select this. So it's installing already. You can either choose to create a desktop shortcut, but I believe we should just leave it as default. We can just close. So voila, we have our endpoint. So let me come back here to the dashboard here. So the dashboard here. Check if the connector is already updated to the server here. So we have 4 connectors now. So the connector is already on this server here. So we've already installed it. So it's going to start work. Or it's already working already and protecting our environment. So it's Cisco AMP. So I just want to launch the Cisco AMP and let us get a view of the endpoints. Okay, so this is it. It's saying connected. So that's connected to our management console. So this is the policy that we set on the management console. That is webinar test here. So it's already isolated. It's not isolated. We didn't set that when we are setting the policy. Assuming we set it to endpoint isolation mode when we are setting the policy, here will be isolated and it will not be able to contact any other file or server on the internet. So it's going to just have access to the management console only. So from here, you can just basically have few things that we can just do on the endpoint here. So these are just the settings that are available, and this is the interface. So we've already deployed our connector for this Windows server on Azure. Okay, Chisom. Okay, we are done now. So if there's any question.
Okay, thank you so much, Ahmed. Are there any questions? We'll be taking questions now. Still holding on for questions. We've already run a bit out of time, so if there are any questions, please type your questions in the chat window or just signify by raising your hand and I'll call on you to speak. Okay. I'm assuming Ahmed was very clear and we all understand how Cisco AMP works, basically based on the demo. So now we'll be ending today's webinar session. Thank you all for attending today's session. The recording will be made available to every one of you. We'll be sending that to you after the webinar. For any questions, if you have any questions, even after this, you can simply send us an email. So you can send an email to sales@hashem.com. Typing that in the chat window now. Then we'll be having another webinar session on Thursday. We'll be discussing building a modern SharePoint site. I'm going to share a link to that as well. So yes, please endeavor to join us on Thursday. We look forward to seeing you join. Thank you all, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Hamed, as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chisom.
Bye, everyone.